Hello everyone, this is Greyshot17, and I'm bringing you a review of Fate Apocrypha, which you can now check out on Netflix. This is going to be on part 1, and by the way, I know about part 2. For those who don't know, Netflix does a thing where they release just a block of content for typically about anime, similar to Little Witch Academia, and then eventually they'll release the second part later with dubbing of English and usually with the original Japanese voice acting with it, as this is an anime, so it typically has both for both audiences, similar to like Attack on Titan has both or something along those lines. I know your sub versus dub argument, I understand that, but just hear us out and why Netflix chose to do it. Oh, there's my cat in the background. Anyway, so the reason I bring this up is very simple. You can technically watch Fate Apocrypha, the whole thing, if you want to, which I'll kind of explain and go into. But yeah, so if you're new to the Fate series, essentially it all revolves around the Holy Grail War. Essentially, the winner gets to make a wish on the Holy Grail. And how do you do that? You defeat, well, out of the 7 participants, which are 7 mages that control 7 servants of heroic spirits. These heroic spirits can be anyone that has like a legend or notoriety around them, from King Arthur to kings and queens of past, or some other noble person that has made a legend of themselves, or maybe even a samurai from Japan, to pretty much anyone of notoriety. It doesn't even have to be a warrior, which I kind of like about this entry, and I'll get to that a little later. So anyway, of course, you battle like a battle royale against the other 6 opponents. You win against them, you get the grail, and you make your wish. And there's a lot more to it. And again, I highly recommend you check out the Fate Zero / Fate Unlimited Blade Works / Fate Stay Night / will be Fate Heaven's Field, because that essentially is the mainline entries of this. Fate Apocrypha is its own thing, and while it does kind of explain the Fate universe, it does so in a very rushed way. And if you're kind of new to Fate, I mean, I wish you the best of luck at understanding all this lore, because you're going to be walking into this and be like, what? And again, I don't know why you would choose Fate Apocrypha to start with, but I recommend Fate Zero, and then maybe Fate Stay Night. That's an older one. At best, I would say Unlimited Blade Works. I know. Put down your pitchforks. I know you could always play the visual novel that it was based on. But if you want to watch really high-quality anime that's great, like Fate Zero, or good, like Unlimited Blade Works, that kind of goes over the story, then I recommend that. But Fate Apocrypha is its own thing. So let's get into it, finally. So what did I think of Fate Apocrypha? Well, I think it's okay. It's, in my opinion, out of the 3 major animes that I've seen, and I'm not even counting Fate Stay from Dean, like I said, it's okay. My stance is, I have positives. The animation is beautiful. Once again, if you don't know, Fate, at least the current run, has beautiful animation, just gorgeous visuals, and they definitely take a highlight in that. The sound and overall design is pretty good, though I will say the bong effect that you hear a lot during this kind of got on my nerves. You kind of got that in Fate Zero and Fate Unlimited Blade Works, but here I was just like, okay, turn it down, because you're really just like, man, put that sound up on that explosion as high as possible, because we want to make sure it sounds great, like it's in your face. And I'm just putting on my headphones like, what the hell? The characters can range from amazing to terrible in this, and that's my major problem, the characters and story, because that's essentially what Fate is. Again, if you're going to be rooting for these characters, even if it's like a battle royale sense, you hope that there's enough. Now, in this Holy Grail War, it's actually 7 servants on one side versus 7 servants on another, all smacking against each other. And very quickly, those 7 servants may not even be fighting on said side. And that's where confusion starts, because you have characters just going off willy-nilly on their own thing. You have characters sent off to do their own mission, and then you have new characters popping up. So overall, there's probably 25 characters that they just introduce you to in the first couple episodes, and you're just like, wait, who's that? How does that person connect it? Oh my god. And yeah, there's some obvious tropes which I'll get into, kind of just like this person showing up and it's like, yeah, he's the bad guy. Yeah, I know what you're doing. He's the bad guy. And before you say, wait, no, they're the bad guy. It's like, no, what you're doing right now, I see what you're doing. That's the bad guy. I get it. So it's kind of just like, I don't know, they could have worked on the storytelling or something a lot better because, for example, and I'm going into light spoilers, every single servant has a master, aka someone that controls them, and you can tell how they control by a seal on their hand. They usually have some type of pattern that controls the servant. Well, when a character that said you see the servant and you don't see said master, and the servant's like, I wonder what's going on, and then you spend all your time looking at the other side where they have their own servants and masters, and you learn more about them, and they're supposed to be the bad guy in this, and you're like, yeah, there's something wrong here. You just do not care enough for us to see said people, so I wonder what that could be. Anyway, the servants themselves and the masters, once again, can be very good. For those who don't know, the Fate Stay, at least series, has a certain character that they like to resolve around, and Mordred, hopefully I'm getting that right, kind of going back to the King Arthur storyline, which kind of in every single Fate has kind of mentioned or gone into. The King Arthur storyline is very good, though. This one it opens up some more lore, which is nice, but it kind of pokes a lot of holes at it as well, and I'll go into that spoilers. So it's kind of good and bad, and actually was laughing at it, just like, are you serious right now? And I see it does more harm than good, while the other two were kind of building up King Arthur. And again, I'm not going into spoilers, because for those who don't know who King Arthur is, you will know in spoilers, or you should know if you watch Fate who King Arthur is. But anyway, it's just that actually brought down the story for me in a way. It was like, yeah, this isn't helping. This really isn't helping. And then also as well, some of the servants, I'm just like, are you serious right now? Because while they have amazing servants that kind of go with that fantastical or go with that kind of historical element to said character and just elevate it even better, you have other servants, and I'm just looking there, I'm like, why did you make that character design? Why did you turn this historical person into this? Because this is not them. Oh no. This is like Godzilla and Zilla, and if you know the difference between the them and you call Zilla Godzilla, you will quickly have an angry mob of people going after you, just like, yeah, there's some things you should know, and this is one of them. That is not that character. But yeah, so overall, the servants and the character motives are also kind of really weird, and they also kind of do a thing where The Walking Dead, which I'll get into, where, man, if you watch The Walking Dead and you watch this, and I haven't watched The Walking Dead in a while, you get a lot of flashbacks being like, oh, I know how this is going. Where Fate Zero and Unlimited Blade Works didn't do that necessarily. And again, I'll go into why, just like how the characters are shown off or then removed. And overall, the story is fine. I mean, it goes with Fate, if you know how Fate works, with how the protagonists of those would choose. So when a certain character is deciding to go for the Grail, you kind of know their wish. It's okay, and that's the thing. Fate is awesome. Fate Zero is one of my favorite anime, and Unlimited Blade Works is very good. It has problems, but I look past them because I can see the greatness in there, and I can see, like, okay, this story, Fate Stay Night was already told, so they want to do Unlimited Blade Works, and then they kind of retrofit the story as well, because again, it's slightly different than, it's different than Fate Stay to kind of fit with Fate Zero. But once again, you have this, which is out there in left field in its own unique thing, but still drawing on it, and trying to anyway, to lay down the foundation, and it's just not working. It just doesn't work. And unfortunately, as high as some of the action sequences can get, I then get brought back to characters, and I'm like, oh god, why? So anyway, my score for Fate Apocrypha is 5. It's a 5 out of 10. And before you say, oh, Greyshot, how dare you? Look at the animation. It's like, yeah, the animation's great, but I couldn't care. I was laughing at this and just kind of like a bad laugh. Like, are you kidding me? It's not bad, and I'm not saying it's a bad show. It's just okay. And unfortunately for Fate, I expect better, and this didn't deliver. So I'm going to spoilers because you're wondering, Greyshot, why? Go into detail, and now I can. So if you don't want to be spoiled, there. And if you're wondering how I rate the others, Fate 0, I would probably give probably a 9 out of 10. It's extremely high. And then Fate Unlimited Blade Works, probably a 7 out of 10. So I guess just to put in perspective just how it goes. Now, oh boy. So I do like the aspect that at least it is involved around a high school. It's like, okay, cool. Not high school. That's a trope a lot of anime have. And the reason why I was saying, Greyshot, why do you bring up tropes? Oh my god. I got so excited. Shakespeare in this. That's right. Shakespeare is a heroic spirit, and I'm like, that is genius. That is great. And they have also some other really good ones. They bring Mordred, which, if you know Fate Zero, is essentially the main antagonist of King Arthur. Which, by the way, if you go into his story, King Arthur is a female, which picked up again Excalibur, was a female knight, and hid her identity until, kind of just literally Mordred brought everything, the round table, everything crashing down, and literally pretty much in a final fight, while Mordred died, was mortally wounded King Arthur. So King Arthur didn't last much longer after that fight, and eventually the whole reason of Fate is her trying to come back and try to be like, I will try to make things right, because that's what her final goal was. And eventually through Fate's Day, she eventually realizes she was fine with what she did. But in any case, this just made her seem like an idiot, like a weird kind of whiny brat that doesn't, I would not even how are you on Earth even close? Because while her power is very, she's very powerful, I wouldn't say she's tactically smart or even, it's kind of like Anakin, where it's like, okay, Anakin has a lot of power, but the prequels really push the fact that he was this great person, because otherwise you're looking at him like, all right, cool, why not? And here's an example, just an example. First off, they're like, man, we have to do fan service on her, so they literally give her the tightest stuff and say she's a guy, which, yeah, she apparently compares herself just because King Arthur, she hid her identity, even though it literally shows her just literally on a horse going out, and it's just like, how did anyone believe King Arthur was a girl? I mean, a guy and not a girl. Just, especially with the hair and everything, I'm like, I always expected her with armor or something like that, which you kind of see, that kind of hide her identity or keep herself secret, especially with so much secrecy. But you look at her and you're like, yeah, that's a girl. So then when Mordred's like, I'm a guy, I'm like, no, you're a girl. Are you trying to do that to be a king or something? Like, why? And they don't explain it. And it's like, okay. Also, Mordred, by the way, is kind of, the best way to describe it is like a medieval clone of King Arthur. So just to kind of put in perspective of what that kind of is. And again, it's just, I was expecting more from her character, and I just didn't get that. Even with the conclusion, I just couldn't care. And yes, I know what happens in the second half. I'm just, overall, again, it's just, I expected more, especially with even Unlimited Blade Works kind of doing a nice closing of King Arthur's character. It doesn't, I don't know. It was just it was kind of a letdown. And don't get me wrong, her master is fine. He's literally a cool guy with scars and has a curse on his family. That's interesting backstory, but it's just, he's a cool guy that has some nice one-liners and good with a shotgun and some potions. Great. Again, I expected more. Probably the most interesting part was Sig, who is a, okay, it's weird. He's a homunculi, which they make in this world. They kind of oversee and help with the Holy Grail War, kind of with their own, they're human-made people with magical abilities. I'm like, okay, cool. They actually made one that kind of had their own choice, and that storyline worked. I did like that. So I feel like if your main protagonist, that did work, because again, him kind of being nothing and slowly raising himself up to be something is a cool idea, and I like that. The ruler aspect, which is, again, kind of thrown up, like, wait, who is this? To kind of oversee this new Holy Grail War is a nice, again, addition. I like that. That's a cool added effect. I wish they would have kind of explained that a little more and stuff like that, but alright, that's fine. But now let's get into the negatives. Every time they do a backstory or flashback is my Walking Dead moment. It's like, hurry, here's your flashback, literally a couple minutes before that character's gonna bite it. And I'm like, god damn, can we not? Can we please not? And while certain characters had interesting backstories, like Frankenstein or Vlad the Impaler, who turns into Dracula, it's like, okay, you have interesting backstories with this that could have been fleshed out a little more. You then have, like, one of the heroes of Charlemagne, which I'm like, okay, cool, you have a hero of Charlemagne. And how does she start off with? She's a sex slave, and I'm not even kidding this, from a demented person who then ends up freeing someone because she wants to? Like, okay, and then decides to be her own servant, and he's the like, what? Like, I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm just like, kind of character motivation helps, and I'm scratching my head like, why on earth is she helping him? Like, I get you why you would want to get back at your master for literally using you like a pretty much a sex slave, and getting to a point where I'm like, okay, this is really fucking weird. But this is your motivation? Like, and also just like, I kind of like how their like punishment is literally just, yeah, put her in the dungeon for a couple days and then we're good. Like, she's fine. Anyway, so the Vlad eventually turns into Dracula, and that's kind of underwhelming. Maybe I saw the Castlevania Dracula and I'm like, oh, he looks awesome. And I was like, okay, the hair thing is a little weird. A lot of characters in this have this weird hair thing where halfway through their hair changes color. And I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. And then, so I was like, okay, his design's a little off, but he still, again, has the imposing menace of Vlad the Impaler, this great Romanian, like, general to help hold back the Ottomans. That's cool. But then again, he turns into Dracula, and it just goes off the rails. It's like, would the Holy Grail really summon an entity like Dracula if literally would throw a wrench into this whole Holy Grail war? Is that really what would the Grail even consider that? I'm just pointing out because the ruler's like, oh, we have to stop this. And I'm like, well, wait, if the ruler's enacting the terms of the Grail, why would the Grail initially summon? It's like that. Anyway. And the main villain, I guess, of the first arc is like, I'm going to fuse with Vlad. I'm like, that was your grand strategy, really? To fuse yourself with a vamp? Oh, okay. And once again, we get more of we get a little bit of his story, but I would actually like more, because he's the person of Millennium that kind of sets everything in motion. Also, he's a German who somehow got blimps to Japan and stole something. I want to see that trip, how he got a bunch of blimps over Japan, by the way, after doing a major battle, all the way to China, through the Soviet Union, all the way to Romania. I want to know that one, if you could. That would be awesome. Anyway, so moving on through that. Frankenstein. I eventually liked Frankenstein, and my only issue, though, is the fact with Frankenstein is something that the creator made, and this is a female Frankenstein. Like, okay, Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein was the creator. Frankenstein's monster is the creature. And Frankenstein's monster is a gorgeous woman with different colored eyes and bolts coming out of her neck. That's it. Like, I think she, also, sorry, and a horn on her head, sort of. But I'm looking at her and I'm just like, okay, but what's so, like, again, if you literally would send her out and it's just say that was just a medical implantation, just like you had an accident or something, that's the only thing's wrong. And sometimes she speaks normally, sometimes she doesn't. She speaks mostly in grunts, even though she literally can talk for if she wants. It's weird. I wish they would have explained that a little bit more. But yeah, it's just, I was so befuddled by this character, because at one hand, I like her backstory. They actually do it. They changed the Frankenstein just enough to where it kind of fits with Frankenstein, again, kind of going through that thing, being rejected, and eventually being beaten by her own master, and then her turning the tide and beating up Frankenstein. And I like that. That's a cool aspect. But then you also think about, it's like, okay, how is she rejected by the world? That eventually she killed herself. Like, we never see that, and I don't... Like, everyone else just like, okay, cool, hi, what's up? Like, that part, I'm just like, okay. There's also, by the way, I love this huge battle, which, of course, it's like, we can't let the world know, but there's such a large explosion, it cuts a town in half. I think someone would see that. I'm just throwing it out, but I think the Romanians are smart enough to realize, wait, what's that light show going off in the background? Maybe we should go check that out. Another thing. And then there are servants that, again, they're fine. You have Achilles and his mentor. And you have other people, I'm like, who the fuck are you? Like, you have Assyria, the Queen of Assyria popping up. I'm just like, okay, cool. And we learn nothing. And it's just like, it's so disappointing because, like, Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night at least had people who you understood, and the servants who had such great mythology behind them and such good motives. And you come to this, and I get it. You have, like, Spartacus, who's literally just a gleeful oaf, who's running around trying to do battle and say and rebel. And it's like, okay, if you're going to do that, at least do it. But the fact is, they did a half measure. They tried to throw in a backstory real quick and then kill off the character. And I'm like, why? Also, the masters of this, it's like, the masters and usually all the other ones were people who had a reason to fight. They had a motive to fight. And these ones, I'm like, okay, so you have a crippled girl, which is at least smart enough to where she looks like Dr. Octavius. I'm like, all right, fine. You have her brother, which I'm like, all right, I guess he's a gifted mage. But he has literally anime posters on his wall, so I don't know how well he's going to do. You have a overweight guy who has a Hitler mustache, and he maybe is a good general? I don't know. And then you also give the dominatrix someone. It's like, you're really running out of people to give these powers. I mean, apparently you separated with a lot of people that were able to do a lot of good. Also, their caster, I wish you got more information of, like, the caster. It's like, okay, there, cool. We don't know much, except he likes making these golems, which are these giant monstrosities to fight. It's like, if you're going to go down the Fate route, if you're going to have these battles, the problem with the battles is I like to have stakes. I like to be invested, and some of them work. Frankenstein worked. Vlad worked some of the time. Shakespeare worked. I liked whatever he's in, because again, he was just a cool wrinkle. Mordred was fine until she's running around like a cat in circles chasing another cat. It's like, okay, whatever. And then you have the biggest travesty, the biggest waste of time, Jack the Ripper. And anime, I know there you can be trashy. I understand this. But when, I'm sorry, this thing is Jack the Ripper. Are you serious? Anytime you think of Jack the Ripper, you think of this older, creepy guy that's hunting. And again, Jack the Ripper was someone who was notorious for killing prostitutes in London during like 1888 to like 1891, I think is about the time. 5 confirmed murders, up to like 31 unconfirmed murders of essentially females of the prostitution or lower, or just like the poor area. What they end up doing is making Jack the Ripper a sexy 12-year-old, and I kid you not, again, look at this, a sexy 12-year-old that is able to fight, kills people, which, okay, Jack the Ripper turning on his master, that's fine, but if you're going to have the idea of Jack the Ripper being the kids of the Victorian age who were kind of just his servants, the concept is there. How it messes with Jack the Ripper, the actual Jack the Ripper, is a kind of a long stretch. It's stuff like that. And also, finally, the fan service. I get it. It's an anime, you want to have fan service. You want to make sure people enjoy that content. And I'm not saying there isn't enough content for guys and girls alike. But, dear Lord, can't we please, just please, like, if you're going to do fan service, at least do it like cleanly. Not like this, because once again, it's a 12-year-old. Why? Just why? And before you say, well, Greyshot, Jack the Ripper, I mean, that could be an 18-year-old woman. You have no idea. It's like, they literally say it's a manifestation of kids. So I don't know what Japan is, but if that is supposed to be what people are going off to these days, I want no part of it. I get it. I get why people want sexy. Again, I'm being very general, but just like, I get it. There's certain characters you can have sexy. I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But there's a line that I cross, and every time this character popped up, I was like, hell no. Frankenstein kind of worked. I'm not saying it did, because I wish they had more body horror with it to kind of make sense. Eventually, she rips off an arm, hi cat, and eventually you see like the internal components, like, okay, that's more Frankenstein. I kind of get that. That's internal wiring, which also, come to think of it, you're like, okay, how exactly does that work if it's like 1850s, they have all that internal wiring? But hey, advanced science, go figure. But yeah, it's just, I'm probably going on for way too long, but overall, every time this show would advance with a cool character like Shakespeare or Sieg, we then end up going back to the main villain, which once again is somehow reminiscent of the original, like, again, it kind of goes with the main character of Fate's Stay and a mixture of the mentor from Fate's Stay with the protagonist of Fate's Stay, kind of a mix of them. And, like, great, but it doesn't, like, you have his wish and he kind of looks like him, even though you really have to know Fate Unlimited Blade Works and Fate's Stay Night and or Fate Zero, actually all three, Fate Zero, to understand why this character somehow represents these two other characters and go on with it. But yeah, that's just me. Like, again, I'm not saying it's a bad show. It's not. If you can overlook the plot holes and the weird, the rush character development and just the lack of character development on some people and the weird character choices and plots that they chose to pick in this, you can enjoy it just fine. But for me, I'm still gonna enjoy Fate Zero, and I do not care if they make more Apocrypha with their own thing, or really any other spin-off in this case with Fate. I just don't. And it's sad because, once again, Fate Zero I thoroughly enjoy, and Fate Unlimited Blade Works is also really good. But this is just okay, and I want it, and I hope for more, especially with my friends, like, just get through the first episode. I'm like, okay, we're picking up. Oh God, what have you done? But in any case, guys, that's gonna be it. I want to thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. This has been Greyshot17, and I will see you all next time. Before this video ends, I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters like Ace, Leo, Tim, Sean, Sejones, and Nick. Thank you guys so much for your awesome support, and I'll see you next time, guys.